Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Noises Off.
Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my partner in crime, partner in contrary, Julio Oliveira. The summer wages on with our, for this, it's another Peter Bogdanovich movie. So the Bogdanov films rage on.
Yes, this is Peter Bogdanovich kind of bouncing back. I mean, especially here on the main feed, given that the last movie we covered was 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and not just in Rotten Tomatoes, but also in Peter Bogdanovich's heart. Anything was going to be an improvement as far as critical reception and I'm guessing box office take also. So here we are with Noises Off, another offering from P-Bog. Got some familiar faces, not just for the Contrarians, but also for Bogdanovich himself.
Many familiar faces.
Yeah, and then a few debuts as far as Contrarians go. I think legendary comedian Carol Burnett is breaking her Contrarians cherry, as Paul Sorvino would say.
Disgusting. Christopher Reeve flying into frame here.
Yep.
When was the last Superman movie he did?
Late 80s, I want to say. Superman 4.
Superman 4 was 1987. That's the last one he did. And it looks like in between he did Switching Channels comedy alongside Kathleen Turner and Burt Reynolds. And then he landed on the doorstep of Peter Bogdanovich and said, "I'm here. Let me act for you.
Please.
Please."
I just don't want to be Superman anymore.
I don't have it in me anymore. So, Julio, a little bit of an interesting twist on this in the amount of time since we advertised covering this movie, its Rotten Tomatoes score has dropped. You said you had prepared to explain this to the listening audience here.
Yeah, the fresh tomato, it turned.
Left it on the kitchen counter too long.
Yeah, my notes had Noises Off as 61% fresh. And then when I was pulling the quotes yesterday, it had turned into a 58% rotten. And there's not a whole lot of reviews. There's like 22, I think. And I looked through all of them, and none of them are new, which means that it didn't change because somebody added a new review that was rotten. So more than likely what happened is that they took away some of the fresh reviews that were making it at 61%. And if that's the case, I feel like they should have purged even more, because out of those 22 reviews, half of them are broken links. So really, this has probably the same amount of reviews that something like Nickelodeon or Illegally Yours had. Yet another example of the Rotten Tomatoes system not quite working, because that, like in the end, 61% or 58%, like it doesn't really matter. The movie's still the same.
Yes.
And you could just say, well, it's like splitting critics down the middle. But then you should also add not a whole lot of critics. You're talking about like a handful of people that bothered to submit a review for Noises Off. Really, the main takeaway from that score should be, well, more people should probably watch it so we could get a better consensus. But here we are. This is the Contrarians. It's rotten as we record, so we're going to follow through with our gimmick and praise it. We're going to talk about it as if it was fresh.
Which is kind of surprising it's not, given the players involved and whatnot. You would think this is... it's just kind of funny that it's more in the middle, and it's not like a Nickelodeon that's a widely known bomb, and it's also not beloved just due to its very filled out cast. But yes, Rotten Tomatoes 59%, 84% audience score though. So the normal folk that watch it like it, at least the 5,000 plus that logged a review for it. So Julio, of those reviews that weren't broken links, which ones did you pull for us today?
Yeah, they clapped and clapped in Des Moines. Well, they clapped.
Well, normally we would do rotten reviews from Rotten Tomatoes because it's a rotten movie here in Contrarians Corner, but all those rotten reviews had broken links except for one, and that'll be the one for the Austin Chronicle, reviewed by Lewis Black, Friday, March 27, 1992. He says...
Lewis Black?
Not the comedian. Because that's Lewis, right? This guy is Louis. So this is like Rick Moranis and Ghostbusters. That kind of Lewis.
Fair enough.
Now, this one didn't have a quote. I had to click on the thing to take me to the review. So it's the opening salvo here. It says, ironic that Bogdanovich, the first breakthrough talent of the generation of cineasts who became filmmakers, including Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese, should end up directing this remarkably theatrical adaptation of a play about a play. He's saying, this is not, it doesn't feel like cinema. It feels more like theater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lewis, it's about a stage play. It's about adapting film language to...
It's about show business and how there's no business like it.
Yeah, no business at all. And then, Alex, just to fill this out, I got some Letterboxd quotes. Because Letterboxd can be trusted to not have broken links. We're going to open with Allison M. Watched this February 4th, 2023. Gave it 2.5 stars. This is a little lengthy, but I think it's worth it for the punchline. Allison says, this is a pretty mixed bag for me. Michael Caine as Lloyd Fellows is genius. I enjoy seeing Julie Haggerty. I thought John Ritter's English accent was kind of faulty. Was that the point? Peter Bogdanovich excels at a lot of things, but here the comedy's too broad. I am not wild about Carol Burnett in general or her performance, nor do I dislike her. Nicolette Sheridan is great, but isn't given anything to do other than be the pretty blonde actress. Overall, I do not know what the fuss is about, but I'm glad for everyone who enjoyed it. Vegan alert. A plate of sardines is used as a central plot device and other vegan suggestions are shut down. What?
Okay. Full
disclosure, a while back, friend, former guest and patron of the show, Eddie Strait, mentioned that there was he actually sent me the link to reviews from a vegan reviewer that sounded a lot like this. I don't know if it's this person. I just found another vegan reviewer, but it was kind of a review that I generally didn't agree with, and then a very perplexing vegan alert, or one or two or more. So anyway, if there's more than one vegan-focused reviewer on Letterboxd, man, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a bit of a niche.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure the competition is not that that fierce. Next, Jake Lowe watched it May 25th, 2021, gave it 2 stars, and said, no one understood the assignment, in parentheses, except Julie Haggerty. I don't know why he would single out Julie Haggerty. I think they're all on the same level. So either they all understood it or they all did understand it. Did you recognize Julie Haggerty from Marriage Story?
I forgot about Marriage Story. As I mentioned in Marriage Story, I always think of What About Bob? She's Richard Dreyfuss's wife in that movie.
Oh, there you go. Well, she's in a better movie called Marriage Story.
No, you've never even seen What About Bob?
I don't need to. I've seen Marriage Story.
Yeah, What About Bob is a far superior film. Plays Faye in that movie.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we both have points of reference for Julie Haggerty.
And she's, I forgot, she's Tom Green's mom in Freddie Got Fingered.
The pinnacle of her career, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to close with Tom Marinara. who watched it March 13, 2021, gave it 2.5 stars and says, Michael Caine playing a creative who has any kind of shame about being involved in a terrible production is incredible and authentic casting. That has to be a Jaws the Revenge dig.
He is very Michael Caine in this movie.
He is the right amount of British while everybody else is really playing up the bad British accents. Because it's required, I'm sure. That was P-Bog telling them, look, do you hear Michael? Okay, now do a bad impression of him.
And on we go. So there you are, holding the receiver.
So Noises Off, the Peter Bogdanovich film, screenplay by Marty Kaplan. And this is based upon, of course, the play written by Michael Frayn, which the first production of it opened on December 11th of 1983. So stood for, about a decade before this came out. This was released in March of 1992. And again, just with the murderer's row here of Michael Caine, Carol Burnett, Denholm Elliott, John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, Nicolette Sheridan of Beverly Hills Ninja fame, Mary Lou Henner, Julie Haggerty, Mark Lynn Baker. Julio, have you ever seen a production of this? You've seen a fair amount more of plays than I have in my life.
I have not, but a few years ago, I think it was pre-COVID, there was a play that came to Austin called The Play That Goes Wrong that had some similarities to this, in the sense that you're just watching the performance of a play and you see it get derailed. I don't remember if you saw it first the way it was supposed to be and then you saw it again and you saw it go bad, or if it was going bad as you were watching it for the first time. I don't remember, but it was very much like the second and third act in this movie, right? Where you're watching it fall apart. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I figured that watching Noises Off on stage is a similar experience where you just see the shenanigans, the doors closing, the sardines disappearing and reappearing. I can see why P-Bog would have been attracted to this material based on everything we've seen of him so far.
Very screwball-esque, as we keep coming back to that phrase with the movies we cover of his. But this is a bit different than, your typical formula for a movie, and specifically for what we do here. So I think this first half, Contrarians Corner here, is going to be a bit different than what y'all are used to. I'm going to go ahead and read the entire plot summation here, Julio, and then we'll come back and kind of jog back through the movie together. Behind the stage, rather. The film follows the rehearsal and performance of a dreadful farce called Nothing On, a hit British show that is preparing for its American debut in Des Moines, Iowa, the heartland of America, of course, Des Moines. With a second-rate Broadway-bound theatrical trope under the direction of Lloyd Fellows, this is Michael Caine. Among the cast members are fading star Dottie Otley, this is Carol Burnett, hot-tempered Gary Lejeune, is that how they said his name?
I don't think they ever say his last name.
Well, that's John Ritter. Insecure matinee heartthrob Friedrich Dallas, which is a fantastic name. And that, of course, is Superman himself, Christopher Reeve.
Super tanned. He went from Superman to super tanned.
Oh, yeah. He spent some time in the sun. God bless him. He was working up to his main event run, so he knew he needed a good tan to get on TV. Myopic leading lady Brooke Ashton. This is Nicolette Sheridan of Beverly Hills Ninja fame. Bubbly Belinda Blair, Mary Lou Henner. And
of Taxi fame.
Of Taxi fame. Of Beverly Hills Ninja fame as well.
Really?
No.
Oh, man, I got really excited.
And alcoholic character actor Selden Mowbray. And that is Denholm Elliott.
Of Indiana Jones fame.
Thank you. Who is hard of hearing. Frantically working behind the scenes are Tim Allgood. That's Mark Lynn Baker. Do I know him from anything, Julio? Do you know him from anything?
It makes me sad that we don't share a Perfect Strangers experience, Alex. Were you just too young or too old for Perfect Strangers?
The television show?
Yeah, he was Cousin Larry.
He was also on your favorite, that She-Hulk Attorney at Law show. He had 4 episodes of that.
Yeah, he's She-Hulk's dad.
Okay.
And
Cool.
more importantly, Alex, I don't blame you for not remembering because it was a while ago, but last time I talked about The Leftovers at length, they had a running joke about Mark Lane-Baker as Mark Lane-Baker because they, through the first couple of seasons, one of the big mysteries of the show, that's kind of like a running joke in the background, is that he was taken. He disappeared when people disappeared in the Rapture, but nobody else from the cast of Perfect Strangers did. So they're like, why him? Why Mark Lane-Baker? And then minor spoilers for Leftovers season 3. In season 3, it's revealed that he didn't disappear during the Rapture. He just faked it.
Looks like he was also on an episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which I didn't like the last season of that show, but God knows the first and second season, the first season specifically, I adored. Need to go back and give that a rewatch. So that rounds out our cast of characters there. And Poppy Taylor, who is the understudy and who also acts as an understudy, I should say. And that is Julie Haggerty of What About Bob, Freddie Got Fingered, and Marriage Story fame.
Yep.
That rounds out our cast. The film opens with the final dress rehearsal before opening night with an unfinished set and the cast still forgetting lines, missing cues, and mishandling props. Fellows cajoles, yells, and pleads with them to get things right, sometimes causing more problems than he solves. Complicating matters are the personal problems and backstage relationships of the cast and crew, which are simmering under the surface during rehearsal, but erupt into the open as the play works its way across the country en route to New York. After the rehearsal, the film goes on to show 2 performances of the play, one a matinee in Florida, in which the feuding cast members are barely able to finish the first act, and another in Cleveland, which quickly degenerates into complete chaos and anarchy as none of the cast are able or willing to perform professionally. However, against all odds, they manage to sort out their personal differences and pull together for the Broadway debut, and the show becomes a massive hit. Miami to Cleveland, man. I want to talk about a downgrade. I'm not even that. I've been to Miami once, and I wasn't as crazy about it as some people are. I think it's. I think you have to be way more into that clubbing nightlife scene. I mean, it looks awesome. I remember driving around and being like, "Yeah, it's Vice City," but still, the beach is there. You can get good food, and everyone's really pretty. And then you go to Cleveland, and it's just like fucking potatoes. And the Cleveland Browns.
Delicious potatoes, though. Well-fed customers.
Yeah. So anyway, check out Miami. Cleveland, if you're visiting the United States for the first time, you can skip Cleveland.
If your theater company's touring, prepare yourself for Cleveland.
I was about to say, it makes sense that that's where everything goes to hell because they're like, we're in Cleveland. Fuck me dead.
5 seconds and we still haven't got a laugh.
All right. So, Julio, going back to the beginning of this movie, one, we get the Touchstone studio signature, which is, man, you want to talk about something that pinches and pokes a very, very particular area of nostalgia. When I see that like that's that made me very happy. And I got really excited when Michael Caine was doing the voiceover. It doesn't last for the entire movie, but they bring it back at the end. So they both execute the takeoff and landing perfectly.
Like his character in Jaws of Revenge.
Exactly. Julio, I was very excited at the very beginning of the movie when giving stage direction that Michael Caine does say the name of the film. He does say "Noises Off." And according to the IMDb trivia section of this film, the movie's title, Noises Off, is a stage cue used in plays by a playwright to indicate noises occurring off stage. So that in this is like, the birds chirping and the wind in the background and whatnot. So
that's so weird because you would think it would be noises on, right? Like turn on the noises.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I thought he was saying noises off as in like, everybody shut up. We're about to start.
Yeah. When you're sick, you're positive for something when, usually positive has a good meaning to it. So,
that's true.
The medical profession and playwrights really need to get their verbiage in line. All right. The opening of this is basically just like a big cast reveal, not just for, the actual play and all the characters being introduced, but, you go to see this in 1992 and you're not really aware of who's in it. This would have been an awesome thing to see in the theater. Just like, oh my God, it's Carol Burnett. Oh my God, it's Superman. Oh, and it's the guy from Three's Company. It's one after another. Like the whole first act of this movie is literally just the rehearsal. It goes on for what would you say, about 30 minutes or so? Maybe a little bit longer. And
I think longer. I think it might take almost an hour of just the setup.
Well, then go with that, Julio. Let's start there. This movie, there aren't many scenes. It's, what I read off right there is legitimately it's there's 4 different locations in this movie, and one of them, like you said, takes up almost half of the movie.
Des Moines, right? That's where they start. The opening night.
Yeah, you're right. Because the movie starts with Michael Caine in a panic, drunkenly running out of what's about to be the Broadway debut, and then we go to Des Moines, the opening night, where it's the rehearsal, and we go from there. Yeah, we go from the Des Moines to Miami to Cleveland, and then we wrap up on Broadway. Back
on Broadway. Yeah, it's a gamble. I can't think of a whole lot of movies with this structure. I know they're out there. I just can't think of one. What I was thinking as I was watching this one, as I was watching Noises Off, is screenplays I've read that unproduced screenplays, just people that asked me to read their stuff, or just screenplays that I found online when I was reading a whole lot of them. That try to do this thing, right? Like where you have a really clever idea that requires you to set things up for an extended amount of time and then spend, let's say, the second half of the movie paying those off, right? And more often than not, the problem that you run into is that the setup was nowhere near as entertaining as the payoff. Like the payoffs were going to be great, but man, in order to get to those payoffs, you had to get through like 40, 50 pages of stuff that you're like, what's the point? And at the back of your head, the point is that all this is just set up for a punchline that comes much later. Now, the way to do it properly is what P-Bog does here, and of course the playwright that got it started, right? Which is that the setup doesn't have to be just a setup. The setup has to be funny and entertaining on its own. The setup has to have its own set of punchlines. So that's why it works. That's why you can sit through like an hour almost of them prepping you for all the other funny things that are going to come down the line. But you need to put all those pins on the runway, or whatever analogy you wanna use, just so that you can knock them down on the second act and the third act, right? But you have to establish that Nicholas Sheridan always loses her contact lens, and you have to establish that Christopher Reeve gets nosebleeds whenever there's violence around him, and you have to establish that Delham Elliott is a drunk, and so on. So you have to establish all those things, but you have to establish them in a way that's funny and engaging, and so on. And so obviously having a great cast, like a cast of all stars, already does half the job for you. Because I'm like, oh, it's John Ritter. Yeah, of course I'm going to be paying attention, But then you also have to give him stuff to do. And so I think that at times you can feel like maybe this is overstuffed with like, oh, so many characters, so many things happening. But it kind of needs to be, because it needs to hold your attention. You need to be paying attention to the play that they're rehearsing, like the story within the play. You need to pay attention to the drama in between the characters, and how this is going to play out in the future, right? I think as you were watching this, Alex, could you tell that all these things that were being set up were going to have payoffs later? Or was it more as in, you didn't know what you were in for as the movie went on?
I assumed, this was introducing, a lot of these were introducing a gun in the first act, that idea. And that's something that this was somehow going to come back to pay off later. And, by the end of the movie, Christopher Reeves is on stage reading his lines with his nose stuffed full of tissue, and people are looking on their shoes for contact lenses and whatnot.
Something else that this first act establishes is that Michael Caine fucks.
Oh, yeah. Much like in Jaws the Revenge.
I was thinking, Alex, much like P-Bog in real life, I think that this might be the most...
This is also true.
The most direct, the most clear surrogate for Peter Bogdanovich in one of his movies, at least in the movies that we've done, right? We've thought that maybe the Ryan O'Neal character in Nickelodeon, right? And maybe he sees something of himself in one of the kids in Last Picture Show. But here, you're talking about a director that thinks very highly of himself, because Michael Caine here he calls himself God, right? Mm-hmm. And he has a wandering eye with his female cast. he is sleeping with Julie Haggerty and he's sleeping with Nicolette Sheridan behind their backs, right? And also, you can see that he's also looking around for other girls. Like there's a moment where, I don't know, it was like a PA, somebody walks past him and he kind of like checks them out. It's what we've come to learn of the P-Bog persona, the Bogdanovich mythos. So you can see how you see the character Michael Caine's playing here. You're like, I think that Bogdanovich sees himself in this guy. And I think that it colors the way that he presents the character in a good way, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. Do you tell me, did you find Michael Caine here an endearing character? I mean, I think we can both agree that he's kind of an asshole, but did you find him endearing? Were you kind of rooting for him, or were you annoyed that he ends up getting pretty much a happy ending?
It is comical that he's like, I mean, he is Michael Caine for crying out loud, but he's just a sexual tyrannosaur in this. But I found parts of his character charming in how much of an asshole he was, where a character, Christopher Reeves and Nicolette Sheridan question their character's motives or like propose lines. And he's like, can I see the script? And he's like, or like the source material. And he's like, is that what it says in here? Is that what, it's, the whole rhetorical thing of just going to such lengths to make his point and how big of an asshole he can be. I thought that was really good.
We know you've worked over in London in some very classy places where they let you make the play up as you go along. But we don't want that kind of thing here, love.
And yeah, obviously things do go his way in the end, which is kind of funny. But, if you wanted to, you could kind of dive deeper into it and we could get into the debate that we had during our Whiplash episode about you have to be an asshole in that situation. Now, the biggest difference is Miles Teller didn't get so frustrated with J.K. Simmons that he rammed a cactus up his ass. But people handle stress in different ways.
Yeah, but I can see your point. Do you need to be an asshole to be a successful director? And is that the point that the movie is trying to make? Is that something that Bogdanovich is trying to do? Is this him, once again, putting himself out there and saying, look, this is how I am and I get results, right? We may have our bad days, but at the end, we open up Broadway and everybody loves it, which is a funny thing for him to say, to put in a movie, assuming that he's projected, because this is coming after a lot of movies that were not received well from him. So maybe a little bit of a wishful thinking, just trying to recapture the magic. But yeah, that was my main thing watching Michael Caine at work here. And the other thing is that he is a good director, right? There's two moments where Christopher Reeve gets stuck on a plot point and questions the direction. He's like, well, I know what my character would do, or why my character is doing this. And Michael Caine, frustrated as he is, he comes up with a way of unlocking that for Christopher Reeve so that he can just do what needs to get done, right? And it's very manipulative. We can tell that's manipulative from our vantage point of view, but it works for the actor, for Christopher Reeve, and so it works. And you can say that that's why the play goes on to be a success, because he knows how to manipulate his cast. Obviously, he also knows how to manipulate them in ways that are not as noble, right? His relationship with Nicolette Sheridan is tricky, because you're talking about a man in a position of power potentially taking advantage of an up-and-coming actress. But then again, you get to the happy ending and everybody's paired off with who they're supposed to be. Now, John Ritter, Alex, this is our third Bogdanovich film with him. You haven't watched They All Laughed yet, but he's in it too. So he's a Bogdanovich regular. At his most John Ritter, I think, in this movie. I know you're not the Three's Company fan that I am, but still, he can take a spill. Is that the correct verbiage?
Yeah, he's not like Joaquin Phoenix in The Village bumps here, but he takes a couple good spills. What year was Nickelodeon? That was 76. So that was like one of his first gigs, because Three's Company didn't start till 77. So Peter Bogdanovich really pushed onto the world and into the world John Ritter. And I do find it charming and think there's something romantic about him, coming back for a role like this. Yeah,
with a lot more experience, having done who knows how many seasons of TV and other movies. And then, of course, this is just a step on the road to Sling Blade. So it's all part of the journey.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm a big John Ritter fan. So, of course, he's the GOAT for me. I saw him and I was happy that the screenplay, the movie allowed him to do the John Ritter thing of constantly reacting to things and acting surprised and scrambling to close a door or to open a door or to get a plate of sardines. That kind of stuff it's always a joy to watch when you're seeing somebody that's really good at it. And I think John Ritter was really good at it. I probably enjoy his English accent second best. There's only one that's better, and we'll get to it. But do you have a favorite out of all the British accents we get? Because I think that's also pretty brilliant, that all the actors are American, but then when they're acting in the play, they have to put on British accents, and they're all terrible.
It could just be because we've never discussed him on here, but Christopher Reeve, I think, is very funny in this. He's Superman. I mean, I can't remember when it was recently. We talked about if you play Jesus or Superman, you're kind of fucked for the rest of your career. But
yep, we're talking about Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that was it. And so everyone is just going to associate him with, being Kal-El. But that's what kind of makes this performance fun. And I honestly, it's kind of motivated me to seek out Switching Channels, that comedy he did with Burt Reynolds and Kathleen Turner, just because I love the conscious attempt to separate yourself. And obviously it didn't really stick, sadly. But his nose bleeds when there's violence. And the one scene where him and John Ritter try to fight, it's there's really nothing imposing about it. So I think this was a pretty interesting swing from him. And he hangs in there comedically and acting wise with a cast of, look, you just read this on paper. There's a lot of, accomplished comedic actors on there. And then there's the guy who played Superman. So for him to hold his own here, I think is that to me is why he has the most humorous and the most memorable performance in this movie.
Yeah, I can see that. I remember I watched this movie a long time ago when I was really young, and that was the novelty. The novelty was the guy from Three's Company, the guy that plays Superman. And I knew Carl Burnett because they would have reruns of the Carl Burnett show late at night in Peru. So it's like, it's that lady. Yeah, he does well. He's not, and he's playing, like, I think most of them really, he's playing two characters because they're playing the character that they play in the play. That's quite a sentence. And they're also playing the character that's, the actor. So when he's playing Freddy, he is kind of mild-mannered. I mean, he's not quite the Clark Kent that he is in the movies, but he is just more soft-spoken and insecure. And, of course, his backstory is that his wife has left him, so he's also shaken by that. And then when he's playing the character in the play, his Mr. whatever, he's just a big dork, gets a tax paper glued to his hand and then a plate of sardines glued to his other hand. So he's doing two different things, and most of the actors get to play those roles.
Philip Brent. Philip Brent is his name, and that's also very, very pompous name there. Friedrich Dallas is fantastic.
Darling, where are you? That stuff that eats through anything, it doesn't eat through glue, it just eats through trousers. If it eats through trousers, you don't think it goes on and eats through... Listen, darling, I think I'd better get these trousers off. Darling, quick! No, this is an emergency. If it eats through absolutely anything... Oh, darling, I think I can feel it. I think it's eating through absolutely everything.
So, Julio, tell us what this play is about.
As far as I can tell, it is... Well, okay, that's me cheating, because on the marquee, they call it the Smash Sex Farce. So it is meant to be like very sex oriented.
Yeah, it seems like the idea of it is there's several couples that go to this like lodge or mansion, summer home or what have you, all with the idea that they're going to be the only people there, so they can just ravage each other far into the night. But then it turns into this situation of everyone slowly realizing there's someone else there.
Yeah, there's so Christopher Reeve and Marilu Henner are the owners of the house. They are supposed to be living abroad. because of tax reasons. If they come back to the States, they get in trouble with the IRS, right? But they come back in secret so they can spend some time in their home. And then John Ritter and Nicholas Sheridan, he's a real estate agent that's supposed to be selling the house, showing the house. And she is an IRS employee. And they're there just because they need a place to have sex, I guess.
Nicolette Sheridan, by the way, 90% of the movie, she's in bra, panties, and stockings with high heels on.
It does not affect her performance at all. She's not self-conscious about it. Like you said, most of the time she is in her underwear for plot reasons. And she carries on. And Bogdanovich, this is not when we're talking about the Charlie's Angels movies. And I would tell you, man, McGee can't help himself. And he has to just like go up there with the camera, overly sexualizing these pretty women. Here, I think Bogdanovich keeps a respectful distance from, not just from Nicholas Sheridan, I think from everybody. I mean, partly because it's a stage play, so you want to get you want the wide shots to appreciate the action, but also because it's not about exploiting the fact that this gorgeous woman is in her panties. But she's really funny. I think that it's remarkable, I guess, that once the shock wears off, you kind of forget or you stop thinking about the fact that she's half naked, and it's just more about the other things that she's doing. But yeah, then there's Carol Burnett, who's the lady that's watching the house, and she's there not to hook up with anybody, but to watch horse racing, right? The Royale.
Yes.
Yeah, because she her TV at home is black and white, so she wants a color TV. And then Hum Elliott is a burglar who thinks the house is abandoned, so he's gonna go and rob it.
And then Christopher Reeves plays a second character.
Right, the Sheik, who shows up at the end of Act 1. And the joke that we never see how it plays out in the second act, the joke is that he looks just like Philip. That's why Christopher Reeve plays both characters. Something I really like, Alex, is that we get a tease of the end of the play twice, right? Like we see him at the end. Yeah, and it's like, what is happening? It's just like the stage is all dark, and then there's these two cops played, I guess, by Julie Haggerty and Marklin Baker, and then they're shining flashlights on the couples, and you see John Ritter and Nicholas Sheridan in one corner, and Ritter, I don't know if you noticed, but he has lipstick on.
Yeah, it's this joke would also be used in the Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp series, the play that they do. Throughout the series, they cut to like rehearsal and the actual play itself at just random parts that have nothing to do with one another. And so it's very similar here to like what we see in rehearsal and like the times it goes wrong versus how it ends. It's like, what? How the fuck did they get there? And then Julie Haggerty with the big mustache as a cop. That was very funny. Yeah.
And of course it ends with the last line of the play, from what we see, is something about sardines, but then the entire audience goes, sardines.
Yeah.
It's that's cool. That's a good device to, I guess, reassure us that whatever's happening on the play makes sense in the end. It all makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I would go see it. I would go watch, what's it called? Go On? I think that's the name of the play that they're putting on.
Nothing On.
That makes a lot more sense.
Only one thing we're missing now, and that's a good old-fashioned plate of sardines.
So we get to, we mentioned, the performances that go awry, but one of the big reveals that was not in the plot summation there was that, as we mentioned, Michael Caine fucks in this movie, and I guess he's not, bagging it up because we learned that Julie Haggerty's pregnant.
It was the 90s. Birth control was not at the level that it is now, maybe.
But this comes at the end of like a completely unruly backstage scene where I think like Mary Lou Henner tries to murder John Ritter with an axe at one point.
No. But there is an axe that comes into play. It's Carol Burnett tries to well, I don't know if she would have gone all the way, but yeah, she definitely tries to swing at it, and
she cuts his tie off, right?
Oh yeah, that's Mary Lou Henner. Mary Lou Henner cuts the tie off, but I think it's by accident because she she kind of yelps when she does it.
I'm sorry, involuntary manslaughter, not murder.
Yes, there you go. Your Honor, I move for probation. Okay, so moving on to the second act, right? We've set everything up. The second act, it's almost entirely backstage, so we don't see what's happening at the front except for like very key moments. But for the most part, it's Bogdanovich going back to his love for silent movies, right? It's because they're backstage, so they can't really talk. So we spent a few minutes setting up the conflicts. Apparently, there's drama now. In the first part of the movie, John Ritter and Carol Burnett are an item, and now in this second part, they've broken up, and he's really jealous. Specifically, he's jealous about Christopher Reeve. He thinks that they have something going on, Carol Burnett and Christopher Reeve. And so that's something that drives most of the conflict. And also, Delma Elliott's alcoholism has spiraled out of control to where he spends all his time backstage just chasing a bottle that keeps changing hands. So that was a nice change of pace, right? And I think that especially having watched a few other Bogdanovich movies, I was like, oh, he's going back to that thing that he likes, the silent era and the running around and the passing. You mentioned the axe, and I just mentioned the bottle, but there's also like flowers that keep changing hands, different props that make their way out on stage when they're not supposed to. But how do you feel about this? Like Bogdanovich suddenly going back to the silent era for, I don't know, 20 minutes, however long this stretch of the movie takes.
It's an interesting choice in that the audio, you can hear the actors on stage and like the walking across the stage, and then, the audience reaction to it. But what we're seeing is all the chaos behind the set and the would-be, selling of pain, or there's, like I said, Michael Caine gets a cactus rammed up his butt, and then in anger he goes to grab it to throw it, and then he like sells his hand like he's in pain. It's not unlike some of the sequences we get that are celebrated in Nickelodeon. Peter Bogdanovich, at this point, I feel qualified to speak on him as a filmmaker. He has absolutely zero qualms about making it incredibly apparent what he has loved and appreciated in cinema growing up and what was like influential on him. So I think this is a very fun way of injecting, a tribute to the silent, the Buster Keaton type era that, I bring up Buster Keaton because he literally uses that name several times in Nickelodeon, and doing it in a 90s movie when you would think it'd be almost impossible to pull off a sequence like that. He does here.
Yeah. It's
in the
seamless.
same year that Terminator 2 came out, no less.
Counter programming, as we say. This is one of the big John Ritter moments when Carol Burnett, in retaliation for him dumping sardines on her head, she later ties his shoelaces together, and then when he walks out on stage, he trips.
Classic.
And you can hear it, and it's hilarious. I mean, you see it, but it's mostly the sound design. You hear him fall, and it's awesome. I really enjoyed that, and also the fact that it kind of pushes the backstories of the cast forward, right? Because now you find out that it's not just that John Ritter and Carol Burnett are not together anymore, but also that she's shown an interest in Christopher Reeve, which also suddenly highlights that Marilu Henner has an interest in Christopher Reeve. Or did you pick up on that when it was happening, or was it not obvious until the next segment when they're actually fighting, openly fighting, Marilu Henner and Carol Burnett?
That Marilu Henner had like an affection for Superman?
Yeah, as we all do, I guess.
Yeah, man, this is just one of those movies where I just assumed everyone was like fucking on the set. Like this was the Last Picture Show, like just brought to life. Like everyone's just going after everyone. So nothing surprised me in that regard.
Michael Caine has before he finds out that Julie Haggerty is pregnant, because that's like how they close the first act. He's doing this thing where he keeps sending Marklin Baker to buy flowers for Nicolette Sheridan because she's having a tough time and he's supposed to cheer her up. And the entire time, Julie Haggerty's trying to get him alone so she can tell him that she's pregnant. And it's a lot of fun. And by the time that this is over, this section, you're all set up for the final chaos in the third one. Did you have a reaction one way or the other to the moment where we leave the theater so we can go outside so Mark Linn-Baker can pull thorns out of Michael Caine's butt?
I didn't think the sound effects were comedic enough. I was really hoping when he went to pluck him, it was going to be boing, boing, boing.
The young women that walk by, though, they seem to find it pretty funny.
Yeah, because you do get the shot of both Mark Linn-Baker and Michael Caine realizing they're being watched, and they both just have those big dumb smiles on their face.
But nothing could have prepared us for the final horror. Cleveland.
So we go from Miami to Cleveland, though. We go from silent to anything but, where it just seems like everyone's fucking shit-faced and everything's completely falling apart. Carol Burnett, especially, is hammered in this sequence here. And it just becomes, everyone trying to sabotage everyone. And, the Fleetwood Mac style just infighting due to all the tension in the group and the sexual promiscuity that's gone awry. I was kind of hoping that Michael Caine was going to just start hitting people. It seemed like that's where we were going, but
he has that moment in Miami when, because he's in the audience and they keep messing up the call. They keep changing the time. It's, ladies and gentlemen, 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute. And then at some point, he just bursts in backstage and goes, "What the fuck is going on?"
That's right. Yeah. I laughed out loud at that.
So by the time you see it a little bit on the Miami performance, but definitely in the Cleveland performance, I think it's where it becomes very apparent what kind of actor each of them is, right? I think Marilu Henner is the consummate professional here, her character, as far as being the one that keeps trying to roll with whatever happens and try to improvise her way out of it. Every time that something happens that's not in the script, she tries to get back to the script somehow. On the other side of the spectrum, Christopher Reeve freezes every time that something happens that's not supposed to happen. And then somebody has to rescue him, which is pretty funny. And then I think right in the middle, John Ritter tries to do what Marilu Henner does, which is to bring the play back to where it's supposed to be, but he doesn't have the capacity to do it. So he just speaks nonsense. There's a lot of knows and there's a lot of I don't know. He just rambles on. And I find that so entertaining that you can see this play falling apart and the way that the different actors react. And of course, Nicola Sheridan's probably the best because she just sticks to the book no matter what. So she's not listening to anything anybody's saying. She just keeps saying her lines as if everything was going according to plan, which is really funny. Did it give you, as I think Bogdanovich intended, did this give you appreciation for the craft of acting? Of even more so performing live?
Oh man, stage acting is a completely different ballgame. And yeah, I think to this day people don't grasp the level of separation, level of difference between, acting in a film and acting in a play. Unless you're Bradley Cooper, who was the Elephant Man and refused to wear prosthetics and just kind of made weird faces on stage, then it kind of it muddies the issue a bit. But no, I jest. Yeah, and it's a completely different passion that you need and a completely different will to perform. It just comes differently. It honestly does take a different set of skills. Not to say there's people that can't and haven't done both successfully, but I think what this movie shows is that you do have to be dedicated to it, because different than a movie, you can do a scene in one take in a movie and be done with it forever. But if you choose, the stage life, stage acting, there's a chance you'll be doing the same thing every night for 10 years. So it's, I think this movie accurately shows the level of dedication required to be a successful stage actor, but it also shows the cautionary tale of how the monotony can, drive one kind of insane.
Absolutely.
And to the point of hitting the bottle hard.
Yeah. Michael Caine has that moment. I guess it's the closest he gets to an Oscar clip in this movie, and it's in the rehearsal when they're in Des Moines, when they take a break. And he sits down and he has a little bit of a chat where he just talks about theater and life. And he says, look, all this is doors opening, doors closing, sardines in, sardines out. You get the hang of it and that's it. And you got it made. And he says, that's theater, that's life. And then Marilu Henner goes, you are so deep.
That's what it's all about. Doors and sardines. Getting on, getting off, getting the sardines on, getting the sardines off. That's farce. That's the theater. That's life.
But it's true. I mean, it is much like the speech at the end of Nickelodeon, I think, when that big producer kind of talks about movies and how movies can capture little windows of happiness for people and so on, right? This is Bogdanovich now doing it for the stage. And again, Bogdanovich and the playwright that did the original play. I don't know if this speech is from the play or if it's something that Bogdanovich came up with for the movie, but just that idea that in a way, if you don't want to overcomplicate yourself, you can just boil down life to like getting a few things right. You get the doors opening and closing right, you get the sardines on and off right, and then everything else falls into place, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a very amusing philosophy, and and Michael Caine, he has the cadence to deliver it and really make you buy it.
So Julio, bring us home here. We make it to Broadway. The fear, the beginning of the movie from Michael Caine, is that it's going to be a disaster. His career will never recover because it's Broadway, for crying out loud. So he shows up to the play at the end, drunk, and it's, the crowd is alive. They're on fire. They're going crazy for everything. And like we said, they, at this point, know what to say. They know the lines to close out the show with. And we then get the voiceover from Michael Caine saying, we were all wonderful. And he makes allusion to, sometimes you need a miracle. And he talks about some other stuff about, there's parts of the story I left out. So, yeah, just take us home here, Julio. What happens here in the closing of the film?
So we get, as we've been alluding, you get a happy ending. So as we expected, right? If you're paying attention, Marilu Henner and Christopher Reeve get together. Like they share a big smooch as the audience is applauding. A little more unexpectedly, at least for me, with John Ritter and Nicholas Sheridan pairing up. Because throughout the movie, he's been defined mostly by how he felt about Carol Burnett. But It makes sense, right? They're two young people and they spend a lot of time together. They're both attractive. It makes sense. Completely out of left field, but I was happy for both of them. Carol Burnett and Delham Elliott get together as well. That threw me off a little bit because she seemed to refer to him as a mentor earlier in the movie, right? When they're explaining how he came to be in that show, which, by the way, because that's the thing. Carol Burnett's character, she's financing the play. Like this is her project, her vanity project in a way. So I was like, oh, boy, I guess, he could have been her mentor, and now they're both old enough that it doesn't matter. They could just be together. And then Michael Caine, he says the baby's going to be great. And Julie Haggerty has her pregnant belly. I guess Mark Linn-Baker also seems to be together with a stagehand, somebody that's there on Broadway next to him. And the big final reveal is that they got married. Like Michael Caine shows the ring, says, oh, I didn't tell you about this. Something else happened and they got married. And that's the thing that I was, telling you earlier. That is such a unabashedly happy ending for this dude. It's kind of ballsy from P-Bog, right? Like I guess he's putting it out there because you could say the what you would expect is that he would find success professionally, but he's being kind of a shithead to the women that he was with. So you're not going to have him also end up with Julie Haggerty. Like, I guess she takes him back, he marries her, whatever, like the happy ending, the traditional happy ending would have him be successful, but alone, because those women found better people. But that's not the case. And I buy it. Kudos to P-Bog, because by the time that we get to the end, and I guess to Caine's performance, by the time we get to the end, I'm all in. I'm like, sure, why not? I'm applauding with the audience. I'm yelling, sardines. I do want to call out, though, because I said that John Ritter's British accent is my second favorite. My favorite British accent, without a doubt, is when Mark Linn-Baker has to take over for Christopher Reeve for one scene. Because Christopher Reeve slips backstage. We hear the commotion as he falls. And then next time he needs to be on stage, it's Mark Linn-Baker. And he comes out and he's shaking. He's really nervous. He's reading his lines from a piece of paper. And he's putting on the most atrocious British accent.
Final notice. Steps will be taken for closure. Proceedings in court.
Oh my God, who are you?
And then the curtain goes up and the credits roll.
It's a miracle.
There's no business like show business. It all works out.
It's a classic. It made me think of Shakespeare in Love. How do you know? How is this going to work out? And he goes, I don't know. It's a mystery. It just does. That's what theater is like. That's kind of like what this movie's like.
That Simpsons where Rodney Dangerfield guest stars as Mr. Burns' son at the end. There's not really a happy ending, but he's like, well, while we're all here, let's party. And it starts playing Any Way You Want It by Journey. And then like all of a sudden everyone has a drink in their hand. And Marge is like, where's that music coming from? And who's providing all that liquor? And it's like, yeah, it's a party, Marge. It doesn't have to make sense.
All right. Well, that was Noises Off, which depending on where you're looking, sometimes it's Noises Off ... and sometimes it's Noises Off with like the exclamation point, and sometimes it's just Noises Off without punctuation. Maybe 3 different cuts. There's one that's black and white so that John Ritter's eyes don't distract you.
I mean, it is Peter Bogdanovich, so I would believe there is a black and white cover of this that he insists is the real version.
Are you ready for real talk, Alex?
Yes, let's move along.